'Tis the season for dazzling Christmas deals thanks to The Warehouse. The Warehouse is unboxing mega deals every day until December 20. Deals are for one day only, so when they drop, make sure to race to the shop. Visit The Warehouse this Christmas.
You're listening to the Weekend Sport Podcast with Jason Pine from News Talk ZB. The only place for the big names, the big issues, the big controversies, and the big conversations. It's all on Weekend Sport with Jason Pine on your home of sport. News Talk ZB.
Hello there, 7 past midday. Good afternoon and welcome in to the Sunday edition of Weekend Sport on News Talk ZB for December 15, 10 days to Christmas. And just as we go to air, Mitchell Santner's been bowled. New Zealand has been dismissed in their first innings of the third test in Hamilton. All out for 347. I actually didn't think that we'd still be anywhere close to still in by the time we started the show today. When you're 9 down, you think, well, okay, that could be, that could happen in the first over. We've been playing since 11 o'clock, but only now has England got the 10th and final New Zealand wicket. Mitchell Santner, a good innings from the all-rounder in his first test match of this series. Bowled by Potts for 76. Will O'Rourke with a very handy sticking around 5 not out off 30 balls. 347. 347 having been sent in. How do we feel about 347 having been sent in? Or do you look at the fact we were 140 odd for one and think actually we could have got more? Anyway, leading cricket writer Dylan Cleaver standing by to chat to us soon. We'll keep you updated right across the afternoon from Seddon Park as well with our man there, Andrew Alderson. After 1 o'clock today, intriguing and slightly troubling news this week. 2003 England Rugby World Cup winner Ben Cohen revealing he sold his winner's medal to survive financial struggles during COVID-19. Going to drill down into the challenges of transitioning from pro sport to life after pro sport with a pretty prominent voice in this area, former top player and Māori All Blacks captain Tim Bateman. He's with us after 1 o'clock. Other matters around today, Auckland FC put their perfect start to A-League life on the line again tonight. Jake Brimmer is with us ahead of their away clash with Melbourne City. Kicks off around 7 o'clock tonight, New Zealand time. Ironman 70.3 in Taupo this weekend. Women's race yesterday, men today. Hayden Wild, as you heard in our sports news, coming home second in the men's race. Commentator Cameron Harper going to wrap up the action for us. The prestigious Race 1 Surfcraft Mount Monster was held at Mount Maunganui yesterday, one of the big events on the surf life-saving calendar. Going to talk to both the men's and women's winners at some stage this afternoon. James McConey in his regular slot around 1:45. Live sport, the test in Hamilton, obviously. Also the third test between Australia and India, day 2, underway at the Gabba, weather permitting in around an hour or so. It was, almost completely wrecked yesterday. 28 without loss, Australia. Rain pretty much putting paid to the entire first day. Domestic women's cricket, there are 3 more matches underway in the Halliburton-Johnston Shield. That's our 50-over competition for our top women. We'll keep you updated there as well. Your contributions, though, to the show, warmly encouraged. You can do that in a number of ways. On the phone, 0800 80 10 80. On text 9292 or emails into me, Jason at newstalkzb.co.nz. Just gone 10 past midday.
The scoop from the track, field and the court on your home of sport. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine. News Talk ZB.
So as mentioned a short time ago, Mitchell Santner out for 76. New Zealand all out for 347, batting first against England in Hamilton, having been sent in to bat 347. I'm not sure whether you'd be happy with that or having been 141 for one. Would you feel it's an opportunity lost? Let's bring in one of our leading sports writers, multi-award winner, editor of the superb subscriber newsletter The Bounce, co-host of the BYC podcast, Dylan Cleaver. Dylan, maybe I'll just ask you that. Sent in, would you be happy with 347 or at 141 for one, would you feel as though it is an opportunity lost?
Yeah, it's a really curious one. You'd have to, as a Black Caps fan, you'd have to feel reasonably satisfied about being sent in and ending up with 347, particularly how the rest of the series has gone. But then you look 105 without loss, and you're thinking, jeepers, there's a 450 on here if they get the heads down. So that middle section of the innings was extremely disappointing, and in particular, the modes of dismissal were extremely disappointing. So, on balance, I think 3-4-7 is slightly disappointing, but I go back to that old cricket cliche, which is you can never tell the true nature of a wicket until both teams have batted on it.
All right, we're going to find that out in the next few hours or so. You mentioned the middle order. Ravindra, Mitchell, Blundell, Phillips. I think all got out to poor shots yesterday. What did you make of their respective downfalls?
Yeah, look, I haven't got a better word for it than you just mentioned, which is poor. I think there was poor thinking and it was poorly executed shot making. And I guess the thing that was really disappointing about it was that Ben Stokes signposted what they were trying to do. He'd obviously recognised that the wicket was too paced, particularly at one end. I think when you bowl from the temporarily named Tim Southey end, I think there's a real trampoline bounce and patches there, which can catch you up. So he stacked that offside field. He essentially put a great wall of China offside field. Bowlers bowled a lot of width balls, offering the Black Caps the opportunity to try and score through that field, and they just kept taking him up on the offer. I thought Rachin Ravindra has had but I mean, he's an immense talent. He has a future. I don't want to take away from that at all, but I think he's had a very poor series in terms of his just his thought processes at the crease. He's been going out to poor shots. Daryl Mitchell doesn't look quite the same player he did even sort of 12 months ago. Blundell's form's been well documented, although he had that kind of cathartic century in the lost cause down at the basin. And Glenn Phillips chipping to deep point was perhaps the worst shot of the lot. And yeah, it was a shame because he sometimes doesn't get a lot of opportunities, Glenn Phillips, because he's often kind of batting and trying to manipulate the tail. But this was definitely an opportunity lost.
You said in your newsletter yesterday that these things are always easier to say with the benefit of hindsight, but you don't need to rewrite history to come to the conclusion that finding a place for Will Young from the outset of this series could have been useful. And then you went through the possibilities for how you could shoehorn him into the team. It is a wonderful thing, hindsight. What did you make of Will Young's batting yesterday?
Very pleasant, very Will Young, actually. And I mean that in both a positive and slightly negative way. I think he's a terrific talent who hasn't been utilised properly by New Zealand cricket high performance. I really do think he's been let down a lot of the time, shuffled up and down the order. He's never really been allowed to establish himself. Probably every time he goes to the crease, he's pretty much thinking, if I don't do something here, this could be my last bat for a while. And that's not a great way to play cricket. When you look at the faith put in other people, I think you get results by giving players confidence. Having said that, he's played a lot of these extended cameos. He hasn't actually grasped that opportunity, as fleeting as they've been, and I thought yesterday was just that perfect example of that, where he played some lovely shots. He's got shots all around the wicket. A couple of those drives down the ground were, as good as what Kane Williamson can produce, and I can't think of a kind of higher accolade than that, really. And yet, you look at the scoreboard and it's 42, and he's out. And he got a good ball. So he wasn't one of the ones that wafted his wicket away into the offside field. He got a genuinely good ball that he nicked to slip, and that happens when you open the batting. And it's also why I don't think opening's his ideal spot. But yeah, I mean, 100-run opening partnership with Latham, who also looked really good. It does make you wonder. I mean, with the incumbent sitting back in Wellington, is there a route back to the team for Devon Conway? I certainly think there is, but is it as an opening batter? I'm not sure.
Yeah, and this is, as you say, we can't change the past, but we can, have a look at what might happen in the future. And yeah, you're so right about Will Young in terms of his, he called them cameos. His last few innings, 42, 51, 71, 23, 18, 48 not out, 33. That takes us through the Indian series, obviously, and the first innings here in Hamilton. I just worry, Dylan, that, when Test cricket rolls around again, it'll all be forgotten again. I don't play Test matches again till middle of next year. I feel like Will Young won't be in that team.
Yeah, I kind of think he will be. He's centrally contracted. He wants to play for New Zealand. As far as I'm aware, he's kind of shown no inclination to join the franchise circuit, although he's certainly got the skills to play in those. It's a gut feeling. It's not based on anything other than I kind of get the feeling that this might be his time now. That this is at the end of a World Test Championship cycle. They need to think ahead to the next World Test Championship cycle. The Conway-Latham opening partnership feels broken. It feels irreparably broken. Again, I say this kind of on tenterhooks slightly because I don't think opening is Will Young's best position, but based on what happened yesterday, I kind of feel like they will start the next World Test Championship cycle with Young and Latham as the opening pair.
It just occurred to me when I looked at the scoreboard earlier that England didn't use their spinner, Shoaib Bashir, at all. I don't think he's injured, is he? They went, 97 overs without using their spinner?
Yeah, I think they will definitely have plans for him playing a big role in the third innings of this match. There was always just enough encouragement, and sometimes more than just enough encouragement, actually, to keep the seamers on. I thought Ben Stokes bowled some pearlers. I mean, his figures, I think he took 1 for 91 at the end, which was really unflattering, but he was swinging it round corners both ways, which again was probably encouragement to keep the seamers on. So, yeah, I wouldn't read too much into that, although we'll see what approach Tom Latham takes with, he's got Santner in the 11, who's obviously on a high, given that the last time he bowled in the test, he came away with 13 wickets, and he's just played, potentially his best test innings. I know he has got a test 100 against England, but that was on a very, very, very flat wicket at Mount Maunganui. I think he batted superbly here, so his confidence is probably as high as it's ever been in the test arena.
How will you remember Tim Southee as a test cricketer?
I personally remember him as an absolute great, and maybe less as an absolute individual great, but certainly as one half of an all-time great opening bowling partnership. I thought the Southee right arm away swing from one end and Trent Boult left arm from the other was, on its day, it was just a joy to watch. That's how I remember him. I remember him, interestingly enough, I was on his first overseas away tour. Not as a player, I must quickly add, but I was reporting on the Black Caps tour to England in 2008. I'm pretty sure I've got the date right there. And it was his first overseas tour away, and he just looked like this. It sounds unkind, I don't really mean it this way, but it's this kind of goofy country kid who was living his dream. And then you actually realise that that's exactly what he was. He was this country kid. He became far less goofy as he got older. But he was this country kid living his dream, and all he ever wanted to do was bowl for New Zealand and hit sixes. And he's lived out that dream, and I think he's been a magnificent servant. All he's ever wanted to do is play for New Zealand. He's always taken up a central contract. He plays for ND when he gets a chance. He plays all three formats whenever he gets the chance. He never turns down the opportunity to play. He's just been a terrific servant to New Zealand cricket, who I think a lot of the time is underappreciated. Having said that, and you kind of knew there was butt coming here, didn't you? Yeah. You cannot analyse Tim Southee's career without taking this extended goodbye into account, and you've got to be honest and admit that the last 18 months have been poor, and he probably has not merited his place in the team, certainly for the last 6 months. So that's a really awkward part of the analysis that has to go into the entire Tim Southee picture. But we all suffer a little bit from recency bias, and I think at the moment we're looking too much at that part and not enough at this magnificent foundation he laid for 12 years before, as I say, this fairly awkward, painfully extracted goodbye.
Yeah, very well said. And you're right about the dates too. You got them bang on. Middle of 2008, he was part of that team that went to England. He played a test at Lords. All right, well, back to this current one to finish, Dylan. England 5 without loss. The way they advanced test matches so quickly, they could have 300 by stumps, couldn't they? What would be a good result at stumps today for New Zealand?
Yeah, I think a good result for New Zealand would be, they've actually had some joy at getting wickets at the top. And I think if that trend continues and they get early wickets at the top, what's a really good result for them is to actually chip away at that middle order, like England did with New Zealand's middle order, to not let them get away, to show that they've got some plans in place for Harry Brooks' aggression. And I call it ego, and I don't mean ego in a bad way when I'm talking about Harry Brooks, but the fact that he is the big man at the crease. He wants to be the alpha. He wants to score all the time. I just want to see that New Zealand have been thinking about that and actually can counter that aggression with some well thought out plans.
All right, well, we'll see if that plays out. Tim Southee is about to take the ball from the Tim Southee end, so we'll let you get back to your sports viewing. Dylan, thanks for your time today and across the year. It just feels to me as though a subscription to the Bounce appeals as a brilliant Christmas present for a sports-loving family member. How would someone arrange that?
You're a good man, Piney. Yep, it's pretty easy. You would Google dylancleaver.substack.com or just Google Dylan Cleaver the Bounce. Go into any of the last couple of newsletters and you'll see a button within them that says Christmas Special 24. Click on that. Subscribe. It's reasonably intuitive once you get on there. It's just, I guess, finding it, which is the toughest bit. So Dylan Cleaver and the Bounce. And, you're away.
Brilliant. It's well worth it. I can personally recommend it. Good on you, mate. Have a great Christmas. We'll catch up in the new year.
Same to you, Connie. Cheers, mate.
All the best, mate. Cheers. Dylan Cleaver there. The Bounce. It's something quite different. It's a subscription newsletter which lands in your inbox regularly, and it's just terrific. Really, really good. The Bounce, it's called. Dylan is one of our foremost sports writers, with a particular interest in cricket, but there's all sorts in there. And if you've got a sports-loving family member who's hard to buy for, this is a great Christmas present. So Dylan Cleaver, The Bounce. Google that. You'll find your way. And as Dylan's just outlined, it's fairly intuitive once you get there. 12:24. We can talk some cricket. I'd like to talk some cricket. The Will Young thing really interests me. Unfortunately, as I said to Dylan, I feel like what will happen is that because there are no more test matches after this one until the middle of next year, even if Will Young gets runs in the second innings, which he probably will given his recent form, I just wonder whether when they get back together as a Red Bull side, whether it'll just be forgotten again because of the time that will have passed. Because there has to be a place for Will Young in this team. On his ability and recent form alone. It would just, and as Dylan said, it feels like he's been mistreated by the selectors of the Black Caps test team. So where do you see him fitting in? There are a couple of options. In fact, there are 3 or 4 options, I think. But I'd be keen to hear where you think he fits into the New Zealand test lineup. 0800 80 1080 is our number. Keen to kick this around with you. 9292. We spoke about Tim Southee yesterday, but not everybody could get through. So if you've got some particular memories of Tim Southee which you'd like to share, then would love to talk to you about that. He's currently coming towards the end of just his first over. And see, this is the difficulty. With the way England play, he's already starting to go for a couple. I'll get Andy to absolutely confirm this, but I think he's gone for 12 off his first over. And that is the second over of the innings. He's gone for 12 off the first 5 balls. They've just gone down the ground again. He has gone for 16 runs in his first over. This is such a shame. Because as Dylan said, and he said it so well, so eloquently, you know, the last couple of years, the extended farewell, which has not lived up to Tim Southee's career stats, just poses this danger of overshadowing what has been an absolutely exceptional Test career. It's just the last couple of years, I think you'd say, that have really affected the way we're going to remember Tim Southee, and we shouldn't have recency bias. I know it's tough, but we shouldn't. But here it is. He's just gone for 16 in his first over with the new ball. Across this series, he hasn't been our best bowler. In fact, among the seam bowlers, he's probably been the least effective. Anyway, let's hope that he can rise from what has happened in his first over and have some impact as the test continues. Hello, David.
G'day, Jason. I was just making sure, apart from compliments of the season, making sure that after yesterday's Phoenix debacle, you're all right.
Oh, are you ringing to check on my health?
Well, partially, but no.
I'm okay, David.
Talk a bit of cricket, but yes, no, I'm not sure it's the Phoenix's season this year. But anyway, that's another matter.
Well, I think they'll be okay. It feels to me. I said this to a couple of people yesterday, David, and sorry to hijack the cricket conversation, but I think they'll still make the top six. But they feel to me like a team that'll be fifth or sixth this season rather than challenging for the top two as per last season. I also think the Phoenix of last season would have won that game yesterday.
Yes. It was a shame. Actually, just very quickly, just on that, what sort of crowd was it there? Because you can never tell really on the television.
Yeah, I'll find the number for you. I didn't have my eyes on the screen when they flashed it up, but I know that these numbers are available, David. So let me find it for you. What are your thoughts on the cricket?
Well, I mean, forgive me, Ian Smith on another channel will be saying why would Southee get the new ball, and again, the same thing, it's just sentimentality, and I thought this yesterday, this team has gone as far as the coach, Gary Stead, can take it, I think. I don't seriously think he could take it. I mean, he's got a good enough record in terms of India, Pakistan, Sri Lanka, the West Indies, South Africa, if you really want to say that, but against the Aussies and England, no. And I'm not sure that he could take this team much further now than it is, if that makes sense, and particularly with a big year in 26 ahead. But I was seriously trying to think who could replace him, and I'm struggling from a cricket point of view to think, A, who would want it, or B, who could do it. Just disappointing, this team at the moment. After India, and as I said to you, India was a bit lucky. You have to take that to account, but just the chances are this will be 3-0 by Tuesday night.
Yeah, I think the tenure of Gary Stead, I think, is coming to its natural end, its natural conclusion, David, and it feels to me as though this is it. He's contracted to the end of the World Test Championship cycle, which for New Zealand is the end of this current Test match.
Yep.
He'll take them through the white ball stuff after Christmas and into the new year, but then I think that there will be a change. As far as who could do it, I think there'll be a lot of people who would want to do it. I think the raw materials are there for New Zealand to refresh themselves into a very good cricket team. I was talking yesterday about the fast bowlers who are still going to be there. You know, you look at Sears, O'Rourke, Jameson if he comes back, Nathan Smith has just begun. Matt Henry's going to be around for a while. And then, in the batters, the likes of Rach and Ravindra. And there are guys getting runs at domestic level as well who will force their case. So I think a lot of people would be interested in it. You look around domestically, there's no obvious heir apparent, as you say. Maybe it's an overseas coach. Maybe it's a Steve Rickson type person.
Well, and I mean, I was a great fan of Coach Rickson, to be fair. But the thing being, the coach role now, the one thing Stead had in his favour of all the coaches that we've had in the last 30 years was that Stead could travel. He wasn't needed at home. It wasn't a young family with young children, and he couldn't be away. He actually could go away. And so one of the criteria of any coach that's going to take this job is that you do not have any impediments, like you've got to be at home for the kids for sports on a Saturday or whatever. Your kids have grown up, whatever. Your wife is happy for you to go around the world and she can spend on your credit card, and who cares? But the point of it is, how do you find somebody like that? What do? You advertise that saying, please make sure that you are available 24/7, etc., etc. We've been fortuitous, we're steered that way, but I'm just not sure who it is that you could find that seriously would give up half a year of touring with the national team.
Well, I know what Brendan McCullum does, David, and he's a guy who, I mean, imagine if we had Brendan McCullum as our coach, it'd be amazing. But I know that for a fact he, in his contract with England, flies in a week before every series, and it's going to be a lot busier for him in the new year because he's taking over as white ball coach as well. But for his time as test coach, he basically flies in for the week before the series, wherever it may be, in England or elsewhere, and then stays with him for the series, then flies back out again, and his family travel with him. So he basically uplifts his life, drops it down wherever England are playing cricket, and happy days. So I don't know whether New Zealand cricket are going to be at home to the same sort of thing as a fly-in, fly-out coach. But as I've often said, David, in the search for innovative solutions, nothing should be off the table.
I'll tell you something, Jason, and that is, well, two things actually. If England in 25, and they've got 11 test matches next year. They've got one against Zimbabwe at Lords, they've got 5 against India, but they've got the big 5 in Australia. If England were to win the Ashes convincingly next year, it'll be Sir Brendan McCullum. That's a certainty. But the other thing is, just on the coach thing, he's one of the box. He's out of the box. They thought out of it. We won't have that. And actually, just talking about that new CEO of New Zealand Cricket, Scott, whatever his last name is.
Scott Wening.
Congratulations to him. Yeah, congratulations to him for getting a 3rd test against the West Indies. His predecessor, David White, no, we couldn't do that. We can't spend any money. No. Whereas this guy at least has got some imagination and foresight to capitalise on Test cricket. So that is one reason why it'll never be a Sir David White, thank Christ. But the fact of it is, at least this guy's got that. I'll just give you one name for a potential coach, if you were thinking about it, and that would be potentially Ross Taylor. He'd be one of the only people that I could think of, whether or not he'd want it and whether or not New Zealand cricket didn't want him, but
well, it's an idea, David. It's an idea. 7384 was the attendance yesterday at the Phoenix game, just to put a cap on that. 7384. Good to chat to you, mate. Thanks for calling in. I don't think I've never heard Ross Taylor express any interest at all in coaching. He certainly hasn't done it domestically. Not that is necessarily a prerequisite. Look at Brendan McCullum. I don't think he'd ever coached at all, had he? Before, in the IPL. Sorry, the IPL. But he'd never coached red ball cricket, had he? But it was out of the box, as David said, an out-of-the-box thought from the powers that be in English cricket to say, you know what, that guy's got a bit about him. And he has. Now he's going to take over the white ball side. He'll be just as good as that at that. 26 away from 1. Got to get a breakaway. George, please hold, mate. Want to chat to you. There is a spare line if you want to jump aboard. 0800 80 1080 9292 on text.
It's more than just a game. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and TJ Gardner-Holmes. New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
23-1. Why not Stephen Fleming asks this text. That is a very good shout. A very good shout. I think Stephen Fleming as Black Caps coach would be hugely popular. Would he want to do it? That's the thing. Would he want to do it? Thanks for holding, George. How are you, mate?
I'm good, thanks, Piney. How are you, mate?
Very good, very good. I was going to say enjoying the cricket. I think I'm enjoying the cricket. Are you enjoying the cricket?
Oh, loving the cricket, eh? And, 2 quick comments if I've got time. Tim Southey first and maybe Will Young. But, hey, really, I think it's a really good idea. You've done a bit of a tribute to Tim Southey over yesterday and today because his recent form is somewhat overshadowing what a fantastic servant he's been for the game, and he spearheaded that very strong attack through this sort of golden era. My favourite memory of Tim Southey is actually a white ball one, even though I know red ball has been his strongest suit. But it was the 2015 Cricket World Cup down in Wellington, and he got 7 for 33, I think it was, against the English. And it was just one of those magical afternoons in the capital. He just had the ball on a string. I think they had 5 slips in a gully, and we had them all out in 25 overs. And he was just at his supreme that day. Just I think about 5 or 6 of them were caught in the slips in the gully. And it was an awesome afternoon. McCullum came out and smacked 79 off 30 or so. And the party carried on down into the dockside there and everything, and it was just, I think that Saturday they then went on to play Aussie and Williamson hit the 6, so it was just, that was such a good time to be a cricket supporter, and Southie was instrumental throughout.
Yeah, I could not agree more with any of that that day at the stadium 2015. I think we've spoken about it before, but because England were out so quick that New Zealand came out to bat before the scheduled innings break, and then they only and Baz went mental, and they only netted about 10, and then they had the dinner break because I think they had all this food they had to get rid of.
They did, and I think he. I think that was just the way in which they were playing those matches and winning them was just an awesome time to be a part of from a spectator. But I think BJ Watling even said it to you yesterday. He had a bit of a wobble in 2019, sadly, and he reinvented himself somewhat. I think, as you said, he dropped about 5k or so on his pace, but he was coming wide of the wicket, and he's really crafty. He was swinging it out, and then dipping one back in for LB and things. So. He's a really cunning bowler, smart bowler, and he's been a fantastic servant for the game, and he's spearheaded this attack really, really well. So couldn't wish him a better retirement. And as you say, it's a shame he's not sort of the bowler he was at the moment, but that should not take away from what he's given to New Zealand cricket.
Yep, here. What about Will Young? How are you getting him in the team?
It's an interesting one. I think what Will Young needs to do is just to get that century monkey off his back and really make himself irresistible. He's fine, as you've said, he finds himself in that replacement player mode where he just covers an injury and slides back in. But I think there does have to be a place for him. I think the two players for me that are probably under pressure are Conway and Mitchell, and I think Will Young is more naturally a middle order player, and Daryl Mitchell's been great, but I think of late, combining him with Ravindra and the way in which they've got out after they've got good starts makes me think there's a bit of pressure on there around those two players to give Will Young a go in his more suited area and see what he's made of, and if he can pull a century out, he can just make himself completely irresistible to not pick.
Yeah, and cricket more than any sport does that. If you get the runs, you're right. It's a very, very difficult proposition to leave someone out who's consistently scoring runs. I mean, you watch a game of rugby and you think, well, he's playing well, but cricket, you've got the scores there to back up your gut feel about whether somebody is playing well or not. And you're right, if Will Young gets runs and he gets that century monkey off his back, as you say, then he will make himself irresistible to the selectors. Hey, better move, George.
Good on you, mate. Yeah, great Christmas, Barney.
You too, George. Yeah, good on you, mate. We'll chat again soon, no doubt. Thanks for calling through. Got a couple to get through. Just before that, though, let's get you to Seddon Park in Hamilton, courtesy of the Alternative Commentary Collective.
Henry again bowls to... and the air is a little leading edge from Crawley, and a great catch. He's confused. He doesn't want to leave, in fact. And he feels like, I think Henry didn't catch that before it bounced. So they're going to check it.
And they have checked it, and it didn't bounce before Matt Henry caught it. So Zach Crawley caught and bowled Matt Henry for 21 off 14 balls. That's typically English batting, isn't it? So the first wicket falling at 32, so 32 for 1. And no sooner had that happened than this happened.
Henry to Duckett. Oh, it's gone in the closing it! He's on his way. Absolute cracking delivery. He didn't even bother to review that one. It was an in-swinging delivery, and it had him plumb in front of middle stump. The height was good, and Henry just bowling magnificently again. Let's have a look.
Yeah, wonderful stuff. So that's Ben Duckett, LBW to Matt Henry for 11. So from 32 without loss, England are now 33 for 2. Matt Henry, 2 for 16. He continues to lead our bowlers with great skill, accuracy and success. Lachlan, thanks for holding, mate. How are you?
Good, mate. You?
Lachlan, I'm great, thanks, mate. What's on your mind?
Just the fact that Tim Southey's actually gone has actually put the cracks up me, because he was actually a pretty decent bowler.
Oh, without question. More than decent. Our second greatest wicket taker. So are you a bit worried about who's going to come in to replace him?
Yeah, actually. Well, I was thinking that Daryl Mitchell would.
Yeah, different. I mean, Daryl Mitchell's hardly bowled, though, has he, in international cricket? So I'm not sure that he's a natural replacement. I think you're probably looking more at someone like a Nathan Smith, who's had a few opportunities, Ben Sears maybe. I think there's a few candidates there. I don't think the cupboard's necessarily bare.
Yeah, well, yeah. Good point, Tiny, but it's actually to the point where Kane Williamson, Brendan McCullum, all that. So, yeah.
All right, well, I think we can look forward with a bit of optimism, Lachlan. I hope we can anyway. And look, the point you make about, we're sort of coming to the end, aren't we, of this golden era. And you look at the team that won the World Test Championship in 2021, which wasn't that long ago, only 3 years ago. The only guys in this team today who played in that game, the World Test Championship final, are Tom Latham, Kane Williamson and Tim Southee. It's been an almost complete changing of the guard, which I guess happens, doesn't it? It happens in international cricket. 12:45, going to get a breakaway, going to get you to Seddon Park shortly on News Talk ZB.
The tough questions off the turf. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner-Holmes. New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
12 away from 1, 12 minutes away from lunch on day 2 of the third test between New Zealand and England in Hamilton. Let's get you to Seddon Park. Our man there is Andrew Alderson. Alders, New Zealand resumed 3:15 for 9. They got through to 3:47, so eked out 30-odd more runs and have England 33 for 2. This is their session, isn't it?
It sure is, Piney. I think that's an outstanding display by New Zealand. I mean, you mentioned first with Will O'Rourke and Mitchell Santner. Santner getting to 76. O'Rourke 5 from 30 balls, including his first boundary in Test cricket. I think off the 183rd ball he's faced in the game to this point. So a milestone there for Will O'Rourke, but importantly, keeping the New Zealand team total ticking over to that 347. And now the deficit 314 with England 33 for 2. Couple of key breakthroughs. Initially, Zach Crawley looking like the party pooper for Tim Southee, bowling from his eponymous end with 16 off the first, or Southee's first over, 4 boundaries in it, but he's since been removed. Magnificent caught and bowled doing the follow-through by Henry, who has also taken Ben Duckett, LBW, for 11, with Crawley going for 21. So, yes, New Zealand in command at this particular juncture, heading to lunch.
Yeah, absolutely. Matt Henry with both wickets, as you say. His rise has been quite extraordinary, hasn't it, in the last 2 or 3 years? He is now the leading light in our seam attack, without a shadow of a doubt.
Oh, look, I think, O'Rourke is blossoming, but Henry's certainly that senior partner there now, and, he's had to endure a period. He had to wait his time, beyond Southee and Bolt and Wagner, and just had to keep plugging away, and really tenacious. Matt Henry's shown a lot of courage over time. He's got plenty of pluck, and just coming into his own now and leading the way. And there's a certain maturity about him in the game now that's pretty admirable to observe.
I asked Dylan Cleaver this a short time ago when we had him on the air. I'm not sure whether you can shed any light, but in 97 overs in New Zealand's innings, they didn't use their spinner, England. Bashir didn't bowl at all. Was that just because there was always just something there for the seamers?
I think that's how Stokes would have read it. I am surprised he didn't get used in some capacity, just to bring him into the game as much as anything, and to just test it out, because they're quite creative, England. We've seen that in the time that Bazball's been a policy, if you like. But I guess using him, thinking more for that third innings, though, when he comes into play, Shoaib Bashir. And, because another thing for not using him, he's actually had some success against New Zealand so far in the series, so that makes it more puzzling and confusing, Piney.
Indeed. Well, let's see what happens in the second innings and whether Mitchell Santner gets a few overs for New Zealand in England's first innings. Just before you go, a text through here, and it sort of relates to our chats about the catering at the various cricket grounds. Mike on text, I've always wondered what international cricket teams eat for lunch. Do they get an upgrade from what the media get? Have you got any insight as to what the teams get for lunch?
That's my understanding. Certainly at Lord's, or maybe in the likes of Edgbaston, those fine culinary establishments of the world, Michelin star type fare, as I understand it, Piney. But yeah, the media has stepped down, but that's understandable. We don't have quite the nutritional requirements as the players.
I've been wondering with
hot dog territory, but there you go.
No, I guess if you're batting and you don't want to fill your stomach up, do you, at lunchtime? And so in some of those places you mentioned, it's almost a little bit of a shame, isn't it? You don't get the chance to enjoy everything that's on offer if you're out there in the middle, and you got to sort of just maybe pick at a bit of salad over lunch.
Well, that's right. I think probably with the players, it's more they get the quality, and media get the quantity. And certainly, I'm not complaining. You can pile into it and fill your plate. Fine, it's all good.
Good on you, Aldous. I know you've got a 1 o'clock.
There.
No, I can tell. I can tell there's not a lot of disappointment in your voice, mate. I love it. I know you've got a 1 o'clock report to file. Thanks for joining us, mate. We'll catch up again before 3 o'clock. Andrew Alderson, our man at Seddon Park in Hamilton. England 42-2, trail by 305 after New Zealand were dismissed this morning for 347. 7-1. News Talk ZB.
Breaking down the Hail Marys and the epic fails. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, News Talk ZB.
4-1 News Talk ZB. Good to see Tim Southee bouncing back from a troublesome first over, which went for 16 runs. One of his next over, a maiden after that, and 4 from his fourth over. So 4 overs, none for 21 now for Tim Southee. Matt Henry's picked up the 2 wickets to fall in England's first innings. He has 2 for 26 with Crawley and Duckett, the 2 openers, both back in the hutch. We'll keep you updated after 1, but first up, after the news, going to drill down into the challenges of transitioning from professional sport to life after professional sport. Tim Bateman has been a prominent voice in this area, former top player, Māori All Blacks captain, and owner now of a wellness company. So, looking forward to chatting to Tim Bateman shortly.
The only place to discuss the biggest sports issues on and off the field. It's all on Weekend Sport with Jason Pine on your home of sport. News Talk ZB.
107. Welcome to the show. Welcome back to the show. Welcome into the show, whatever the case may be. I'm Jason Pine. This is Weekend Sport. Andy McDonald is show producer. We are with you until 3 o'clock. I extended this invitation to people yesterday who were out doing their Christmas shopping, perhaps against their will. I don't know. Maybe you're just the driver in the situation. You're just the method of transportation while somebody else in your family is the one doing the Christmas shopping. I've often thought, and I've heard it said, that there's nobody more surprised on Christmas morning than the father watching his kids unwrap their Christmas presents. Look, that might be a stereotype. I don't know. But if that's the boat that you find yourself in and you're tuned in, look, we're happy to help you through the rest of the afternoon or the next little bit of it anyway. If you want to interact with us, please do. If you've got some time on your hands, do it by phone, 0800 80 1080. 9292 is our text line if you want to use that method of communication. We'll be happy to hear from you, or you can just listen in. It's great that you've got a bit of time to spend with us. Lunch in Hamilton. Beautiful day in Hamilton by the looks of the television pictures, and from what Andrew Alderson was telling us before 1 o'clock. If you are just tuning in and you want an update, 54 for 2 England, 54 for 2. That after New Zealand got through to 347 all out. This morning they were 315 for 9 when they resumed at 11 o'clock. Mitchell Santner and Will O'Rourke doing a pretty good job of eking out the last few runs. They put on 44 for the 10th wicket before Mitchell Santner was the last man out for 76. Will O'Rourke 5 not out, including his first test boundary. So 347. England have started chipping away at that. 54 for 2. Crawley and Duckett, the men out, the 2 openers, both out to the bowling. And Matt Henry's got 2 for 28. 140 is when they will resume at Seddon Park in Hamilton. James McConey this hour, and a little bit of surf life-saving for you as well. But we start with intriguing and slightly troubling news this week. 2003 England Rugby World Cup winner Ben Cohen revealed this week he sold his World Cup winners' medal in order to survive financial struggles during COVID-19. Ben Cohen played 57 tests for England, started in the 2003 final victory over Australia in Sydney, Also played a couple of matches for the British and Irish Lions in 2001. In a newspaper interview, Ben Cohen talked about his post-career struggles, including selling his winners' medal in order to help relieve financial pressure on he and his family. Now, it again opened up the ongoing discussion of the challenges of transitioning from life as a professional sports person to life beyond that stage of life. Tim Bateman played professional rugby for nearly 2 decades with the Crusaders and the Hurricanes, the Māori All Blacks, who he captained. He also had time in Japan and has been a prominent voice in the space in both physical and mental wellness. And he joins us now. Tim, thanks for taking the time to discuss this topic. It's an important one, I think. Do you think that stories like Ben Cohen's are perhaps a little bit more common than we think?
Well, they really are, aren't they? Which is just such a shame. It's an unbelievably sad story, but it's not abnormal, is it? We've all heard stories like this, and it's not a new thing either. It's something that's been around a long time, and it crosses codes, and it actually crosses all industries. Sport is obviously highlighted a lot more, but it's just really sad. I mean, that whole financial management sort of side of things, if done right, ideally you wouldn't be in a situation like he's just been in. So it's really unfortunate, but we hear much too much of it, don't we?
Yeah, we do. I want to drill down into that financial side of things and others in a moment, but in very broad terms, Tim, how challenging is the move from professional sport to life after that?
Yeah, it is a challenge. I mean, once again, I know this is not the only challenge. It's not a unique challenge. Everyone has challenges in life, but it really is a difficult transition. It's really hard to sort of explain all the different facets that you sort of have to consider. So just to chuck a couple out there. So physical is like significant changes physically. I mean, I played professionally for 17 years, and my work was training. So literally, I turned up. I had people guiding me through being as healthy as I possibly could be, physically strong, fast, fit, and the flow-on effects of that move into sort of that mental space as well. But you've also got a lot of mental support around you with mental skills coaches and stuff, mentors and whatnot that are really shaping that. And all of a sudden, there's like a stop mark that happens on those two things immediately, and all of a sudden you've got to figure that out, and you can do nothing, and there'll be consequences for that. You don't have to continue, obviously, train like a professional athlete, but one thing I always sort of try and encourage people to do is find a way that you can stay active physically, because you can't underestimate what that's doing to you, both physically and mentally. But there's a number of other sort of factors too that we could discuss, but yeah, those two are real obvious ones. You leave an environment where you're really looked after physically and mentally, and all of a sudden, you're sort of out on your own. Things are a little bit different.
Yeah, and there are two of 6 pillars you talked about on a terrific podcast I listened to a little while ago with James Marshall about the 6 important pillars for transition success. You've mentioned physical self and mental health, social well-being, financial, structure, and passion or purpose were the others. Are there any of those, Tim, that are more common among retiring athletes than perhaps some of the others?
Well, yeah, it's cool. That for me was sort of the framework through which I could sort of see things. So, like, take social, for example. Like the reality is in a rugby or any sort of high-performance sport environment, you're with a group of like-minded people, and you're having a lot of fun together every day. Yes, there's a lot of serious stuff that's going on, but also you've got this real sort of social connection. Like, I could travel up to Japan, and all of a sudden I've got 40 like-minded people that I'm working together with every day. Once again, you transition out of that, and it's not as if there's no one that you can hang out with socially, but it's just a different dynamic, and so you have to make adjustments to that. So once again, what I always recommend players is you keep a really good social network out of the game or out of whatever you're doing. So when that leaves, you're sort of not left high and dry, because it's funny, but the year after I left the Crusaders, it just feels a little bit different messaging Richie Mo'unga, even though we're close friends, and it just does. It feels like you're that sort of guy clinging on from the outskirts, and so even though you've built these really strong connections, it's just a little bit different. But I mean, financial, obviously, that's what that we're touching on here, and there's a big transition around finances, and I'm firmly of the view that it shouldn't be a ceiling. The money that you can make as a rugby player shouldn't be the only time that you can make that sort of money. If you set things up well and you do things honestly, you should be able to sort of chase another mountain. But I mean, those last two that you sort of touched on just now, that sort of passion and purpose and structure, that is that's a really important one. I actually was down at Otago Correctional Facility speaking with some of the inmates that are transitioning out. This is the two, or the structure one for them is the real big one. So like as a rugby player, I could tell you what I was going to be doing in 3 years' time, what I was going to be eating, where I was going to be, who I was going to be with, and the things. And that provides quite an element of certainty in your life, that your weeks and your years and your months are very, very structured. Once again, when you leave, you've got to build your own structure into your life. Like, when do you find time for your family? When do you find time to look after yourself physically? When do you find time to be social? How do you manage all these things? And so it's optimized within a high-performance environment, but you've got to figure all that stuff out for yourself. So once again, it's a transition. That passion and purpose piece, very similar to the social. You're in an environment where people are really driven towards something, and you're on this shared mission together every week, where you're sort of almost like you're going to war, and it just fosters a real sense of enjoyment and passion for what you're doing. When you leave that, it's not about, you don't have to replace it to the same degree, but you've got to find something else that you can sort of be passionate about or can chase, because I really think there's a lot of benefits that come towards working on something or towards something that you really care about.
It's so interesting. And I look at those 6 things, and as you've outlined, they're all so important. I guess, though, you could get by without, having your mates around, or without having a particular purpose, but you need to earn, don't you? Or most people do. There's very few who retire from professional sport with enough to not ever have to work again. What can be better done, Tim, to help athletes, I guess, not have to face those financial challenges, but also to help alleviate them?
Well, I mean, I'm probably a little bit different to how some people would view this, but I'm a massive fan of sort of personal accountability, personal responsibility, and like the reality is there is a lot of support out there, and some players and athletes will choose to engage with it more than others, and that's once again, it's not to throw anyone under the bus, and that life is challenging for everyone, but at the same time, like, your life is determined by what you choose to put in and where you choose to put your focus. And so if you've had zero time thinking about or planning for a change socially or financially or physically or mentally or whatever it is that's going on, then the reality is it's going to be harder. That's just the way it falls out. And I mean, I'm sure there's lots of things that all organisations can do to better support their people. So it's not as if it's not a complete blanket, but in my experience, it's really got to be individual driven, and the support that you get from the organisation, that should almost be a bonus. Like, if I think about when I first came into high performance to what it was like when I left, I mean, we had professional development managers, we had mental skills coaches, we had, we'd be put on to the right people if we wanted doors open. There was a whole network that you could access, but the reality is, it doesn't feel important at the time. You're really just thinking about the game and the weekend, and you've got 10 guys behind you wanting to take your spot. So it doesn't become it's never seen as a real priority until all of a sudden it is.
Yeah, I've got written down here, I wonder if players who are early in their careers are less open to discussions of this sort, because it just seems so far away for them, Tim, doesn't it? A 21, 22-year-old player who all they're caring about is exactly what you've outlined, playing their best, keeping their spot, becoming an All Black, whatever it might be. Are players early in their careers less open to discussions about what happens post-career?
Well, I think it's quite unique, isn't it? Like, if you think about every other career, you don't go into your legal career or your teaching career having to plan for your next career. Yeah, you're not thinking, actually, I need to think about what's going to happen next. So I think rugby is unique, or high performance sport is unique, in that there is always going to be a finish line. There just is, but it never really feels like it. And I think, I know that the induction they do at the NZR for all new players, there's a huge focus on this. The reality is, guys, the average lifespan of professional rugby players in New Zealand, I think it was 3 years when I was back when I was playing. It might have grown potentially to 4 or 5 years, but reality, that's the average life. So if you're thinking, wow, some guys are going to be here a year, some guys might get to be here 15 years. Some guys are going to be out of here in a couple of months. So it's, I think that everyone's aware of it, everyone understands it, but actually being able to practically take steps to manage that transition, I don't think it's as engaged with as it can be.
You're a parent. Do you think parents might be reticent towards steering their talented child towards a professional sporting career because of what might happen to them beyond it?
I hope not. I really hope not. I mean, I think once again, it's really what you choose to put in and the way you engage with anything that matters most, and the opportunities that come and the experiences that you get to have in high performance sport are absolutely incredible. In fact, one thing I would sort of love to say is I think some of the skills that you acquire through professional sport they aren't recognised out of the game, which is a real shame. Like some of the best leaders I know, some of the most driven, some of the guys that are super diligent and planning, the communication skills are through the roof, and they're really able to inspire, and they're super dedicated and disciplined. Like all these skills that in any career are really, really important. You can't build that into a CV, really. There's no qualification that you get when you leave the game that's recognised out of the game. So I think, I think professional sport is incredible for the opportunities that you get, for the experiences that you get to have. So if I was a parent I am a parent with young girls, I'd love them to want to choose to delve into professional sport or push themselves into a career, because I really do think, even if it's not professional, I just think being engaged in sport, being a part of a team, where you've got this sort of mission together, I just think there's so many upsides to that I hope people wouldn't be saying, hey, stay away from it just in case you're successful, because it's going to be a hard transition. Yeah. Fantastic topic. You've given us terrific food for thought, Tim. Thanks so much for giving us your time, mate. No worries at all. Thanks for having me. No, thanks for joining us, Tim. Tim Bateman there, former top-level rugby player for nearly 2 decades with the Crusaders, the Hurricanes, played in Japan, captain the Māori All Blacks. Good player, but clearly a very, very intelligent bloke, articulate, eloquent on this topic, which I've always found fascinating. The transition and the challenges of transitioning from being a professional sports person to the next part of your life. Because we all know that, well, for most sports anyway, there are probably some exceptions where you can play longer, but let's look at the contact sports like rugby league, football, netball, hockey, any sport you can play professionally, which is a physical sport. By the time you reach your mid-30s, you're coming towards the end, and there is a heck of a lot of life left after that for you to negotiate and to navigate. You might have some thoughts on this. Anything that resonated with you there from Tim Bateman? I'd be keen to kick this around with you. Any personal experiences you've had? And the question I asked there at the end, it was something that was posed to me during the week when we were thinking about this topic, is if your child is a talented young sports person who has started to think about the possibility of a life in professional sport, would you be in any way reticent about that? In any way worried that they will, at some point, if they're successful and go on to be a pro athlete, will have to transition out the other end into a productive, happy, successful, safe life? 0800 80 1080. One thing that Tim said there that stood out for me, or one of a number of things, was the personal accountability bit. He said, that these professional athletes all know that it's a limited shelf life, the profession they choose. And as I say, there's a lot of life to live after you stop playing. And most people would say no one's entitled to work until they're 35 and then that's it. And I don't think there's any suggestion of that. And there are very few professional sports people who are able to earn enough money in their career to never have to worry about working again. But it's not just the money, really. It's the sense of purpose, the mental and physical well-being, all that sort of stuff. But what I would say is that professional sports people are put into a very unique bubble, often very early in their lives. You think about a sports person in their late teens coming into a professional rugby environment, if we're going to use a hypothetical here. From the moment they are inside a professional rugby environment, they're told where to be, what to eat, what to wear, everything about what their week will look like, the structure of the week, when they have their meetings, when they have their gym sessions, when they have their days off. A lot of things are done for them. It is not a normal life. Not the normal life of if you think of a typical teenager
It's not a normal life. So it's not surprising that when they come to the back end of it, they find it a little bit challenging to go into a normal life. The other one, which is very interesting to me, is the fact that you have to have a purpose. There is just an innate need among human beings to have a purpose. And once that purpose is taken away, it's got to be replaced by something else. But the qualities that are learned and honed and enhanced in sport have to be valuable, useful in other industries, don't they? Resilience, commitment, reacting to disappointment, problem solving, all of that stuff. Leadership. There are a lot of things which are transferable across industries, and yet it is still a very, very difficult bridge to cross. And even the ones who have done it well, like Tim Bateman. Francesca was talking earlier about Andy Ellis, another one who seems to have successfully transitioned into a number of different projects post his playing career. But they will all tell you that it is, at the time, a challenge to step away. They all know it's going to happen. They all know that it's a limited shelf life, but the vast, vast majority of them find it very, very difficult to move away from it, for whatever reason that might be. 0800 80 1080 if you've got any thoughts on that. 9292 on text. 1:26 it is. We're back after this on Weekend Sport.
The biggest names in sport are on Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner-Holmes, New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
1:29 on Weekend Sport, talking transition from pro sport to life beyond pro sport. Hello, Morris.
Yeah, g'day, mate. Yeah, look, it's sport. It's no different than guys who come out of the army. You're in there for 10 years. You're in a regimented regime. Then you transition out into the civilian workforce, and that's what these guys are doing. But the biggest problem is that you don't have a lot of time to transition. Your career's over, and that's it. Next day you're unemployed. And if you look at the French, what they do with their rugby players, I think they contribute each year, and if you played over 3 years, you get a 12-month. You get your salary for 12 months afterwards to give you that transition time. And I think that's where, for professional sports athletes, they need to start looking at things like that.
Yeah, the money one's the interesting one for me, Morris. Like I said to Tim Bateman, you can get by. I mean, the stuff might be difficult, like, say, moving out of a team environment, not having the adulation, not having the skills to, cook your own meals and stuff like that. But you can quickly sort of, fudge your way through that. But it's the financial thing, the fact that your pay packet stops. The moment you stop playing, your pay packet stops, but you've still got bills to pay.
Yeah, but a lot of things is that, I think the biggest thing is that with most people, when they're earning good money and they're living the dream, but in their head, they know it's not going to last. And there's areas around that, and I think a lot of the issues, people go, oh, well, I'm unemployed, and it's everyone's fault at their own, but a lot of it's their own fault because they choose to have an expensive car, they choose to live the life of Riley, and they don't plan ahead. And there's a lot of work needs to go into that. And I think what they should be doing is obviously taking a percentage of their paycheck, putting it into a pension fund. And look, Piney, years ago I worked at the freezing works. It was, you worked sort of 6 or 7 months a year. But when you got your holiday pay at the end of the season, it was substantial, and it got you through most of the rest of the year. And so, they need to start looking at things like that. And it's like I said, when the guys leave the military, they leave, they think they've got their pensions and all the rest of it, which allows them to transition into the community. And this is what we're not doing with professional athletes. And the other thing is that a lot of professional athletes have egos, which people who join the army and other things don't. And that's it. And so, but I think at the same time, you've got to be responsible for yourself, and you can't blame, hey, what do I do? Because the day you start sport, you've got a shelf life. And do you need to do more work on that? And there has to be, I think, a degree of self-responsibility, which
high
is not
degree
drummed into them.
A high degree of that. And I totally agree, Morris, but I also think there needs to be, and there is, I know, some assistance for people who operate in a slightly different bubble than you and I do. Yeah, I mean, that's the thing. Sports people are no different from you and I. They've got KiwiSaver. They've got the opportunity to put aside a percentage of their salary every month for KiwiSaver. They've got access to financial advice. They're just like you and I who have, I guess, taken responsibility for our lives. I don't know about you, but I've never had to worry about a job that will come to an end regardless, like a professional sports person will. But there is a high degree of personal accountability here. But as I said to Tim Bateman, when you're a young 21, 22-year-old, all you're thinking about is your next game, and retirement feels like a lifetime away.
Yeah, but in saying that, if you look at some of those kids that have gone on and been professional, and guys like Bryn Hall, he started spending excessively early on in his career. Then he realised, hey, there's so then he started planning ahead and using his brain and getting ahead, and so he won't fall into that category. As there were a lot of kids, and I think around the rugby scene and professional athletes, they should be actually looking at trades and all the rest of it, and looking at where do I end after, because it's got to be a combination of both. And I think there's a degree of, if you're playing for the Warriors or you're playing for the All Blacks or you're playing for the Blues or whatever, there's also got to be a degree within those organisations, or whether it be football for the Phoenix or anything, where, when you get kids in academies, and that's where it needs to start there, giving them that thing. And I think that everyone thinks, if I make the All Blacks, I've made it in life. But the reality is, right, Piney, you're earning $350, $400 a year for a limited period of time. I have a 32-year-old son who is born in New Zealand, went to Australia when he was 15. He made the Australian under-20s. They wanted him to commit to Australia, and he said, I don't want to do that. I said, what are you going to do? He said, I'll go to university and forget about rugby. And I said, why is that? He said, Dad, I'll earn $80 to $100 a year. I'll ruin my body. By the time I'm 30, I'll be a cripple. He played number 8. He went and got a degree, and he was earning 4 times more than what he'd earn at rugby. He's now 32, and he doesn't have any health issues with his body. And he said, he looked at it in a very honest and pragmatic way. And he said, what's best for me? And that's what he did. And he forgoed the opportunity of playing for Australia and playing international rugby and all that. And so, and I think that kids need to look at things slightly differently, and sport's not the be-all and end-all.
Yeah. Sounds like a very sensible young man, your son, Morris. I'm sure he gets it from his dad. Good to chat to you, mate. You're so right, because not every young person looks at it that way, in a pragmatic, cool-headed fashion, because the attraction of being a professional sports person is so big. The glitz and the glamour of it is so attractive to people, and rightly so. As Tim Bateman said, he'd hate to think that because somebody had a bit of talent, they would be, they'd shy away from doing it just because they might be successful and then have to transition out. But yeah, it's very, very hard to look at it in a cool-headed way when you're right there in the eye of the storm, thinking, when a professional career in sport is close enough for you to touch, attainable, it must be so hard to resist, so hard to look ahead. And even if you do, you clearly, every sports person must accept that that's going to happen to them and factor it into their decision-making. Hello, Sherma.
Hey, how you doing?
Very good.
Yeah, good. So I guess it comes down to the decision that the individual, like that guy that was just on, his son, made decisions based on his forward view of his life, depending on which pathway he went. And I guess young people end up in professional sports, and they can only see the glory days that this is going to go for, not forever, but beyond what they can see about their future. And sadly, the advice they might get, or lack of advice they might get, that this game is not your forever. So at 35, you'll be looking for a new game, a new employment opportunity based on what you bring to the table, which I get your view that you brought a lot of skills to the table around disciplines and stuff. Sadly, though, it doesn't win you the job when you're out there looking. They're not the skills that will enforce your job application, but they're not going to win you the job. So,
I guess in other ways, though, Sherman, maybe the fact that you're a name, you're a known person, might play into your favour. It might be balanced off by the fact that if it was just you or me, we would have less chance of a job against someone who had a high profile that they'd gained. And even if it didn't really have a direct correlation to the role, I think there's a little bit of that showbiz around, we're going to have such and such working for us, if you know what I mean.
Well, that might appeal to the managing director. I've got a couple of businesses of my own, but ultimately it will still come down to the suitability to fulfil the role, because the novelty will wear off when you realise that this guy's actually going to cost you quite a bit of money to get him up to speed where he's productive in the business.
Yeah.
So, there's all those things. But I think the important thing is there needs to be some advice, some sort of plan when they take these young guys on. Say, hey, look, you're only really going to be doing this for 10, 15 years. What is your future like? What can we set up for you as a fund that you can then take beyond rugby and buy a business or enter a business and put the plan in place for them and say, hey, this isn't optional. This is part of the deal that comes with this position. So we want you to have a future beyond kicking a ball or, whacking a tennis ball or whatever, because we realise that at 35, your game's probably over. So,
yeah, and I know that happens. I know. Yeah. Sorry, Sherman. I know that happens. I know that. And I know that happens inside professional sporting organisations. I think it's called PD, personal development, and they have, they have a number of hours dedicated each week to exactly what you've outlined there, making almost compulsory for these young men and women to think about what their life will look like beyond the age of, and we're using 35 as our arbitrary age here, and I think that's fair enough. But I guess it's up to them to take in as much as they want to, whether they start planning for, whether they do some tertiary education, whether they get themselves a qualification, all that sort of thing. That's entirely up to the individual, isn't it? What do they say? You can lead a horse to water, but, it's up to them whether they drink it or not.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely it is. And, I've seen some All Blacks buy some businesses just lately in Christchurch here, and that have failed miserably because they just lack the skills and understanding of what they've been bought into, thinking that it was their future. They can just roll in. They were actually pubs. They could roll into the pub and enjoy beers with their mates. Well, hello, sunshine. When you're the owner of the business, the luxury of enjoying beers with your mates might happen after the pub closes, but during that time, you work your ass off to keep that business afloat.
Yeah, 100%.
Yeah,
100%, Sherman. Good stuff, mate. Hey, great thoughts, and obviously from an experience as a business owner as well. Really appreciate you calling in with your thoughts, mate. And yeah, that happens a lot, doesn't it? It used to happen a lot more, that professional sports people just went into hospitality. A name, we're going to go and drink at XYZ's pub. You think the name itself will be enough, but as Sherman said, there's a heck of a lot of work that goes on behind the scenes, and you can't just drink the profits. More than one hospitality business has gone out of business because the owner and his or her mates just drink the profits. Anyway, interesting topic, and one we'll revisit again in the future, I'm sure. 19 away from 2. We'll take a break. When we come back, we'll update you from the cricket, which is just getting back underway in Hamilton, and James McConey in his regular Sunday slot.
Don't get caught offside. Call 0800 80 1080. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner-Holmes, New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
1:44. It's around about this time on a Sunday that we catch up with James McConey from the Alternative Commentary Collective, Crowd Goes Wild, and various other bits and pieces. I think you're actually working for the ACC today, are you? But you've taken time out of that schedule to join us.
Yeah, I've escaped the ACC. I've come to see you, Piney, and looking forward to a great afternoon's cricket with Matt Henry so far, looking the goods.
Yeah, hasn't he just become this spearhead? You think about the days of Southey and Bolt and Wagner, which are almost at an end, and Matt Henry's had to be patient, hasn't he? But man, he's 2 for 29 so far in this innings. He's our leading seam bowling light now.
He is, and in fact, just before lunch, I would have thought, maybe give Will O'Rourke an over or two, but I guess, this is Tim's test, and that's fine, but I just think it's looking like there's a chance to strike while the iron's hot. But we were talking last week, Piney, what needs to happen, and I think they've listened to us, because we were talking about Will Young, Mitch Santner. They've come in, and they did a job with the bat, did pretty well, so now it's up to, I wonder when Mitch will get chucked the ball on his home pitch as well.
Yeah, I think that'll happen this afternoon, particularly if the wickets start to dry up a little bit. You get the feeling that Mitchell Santon will get the ball in his hand. Hey, a few topics to talk about. Wanted to get your view on the A-League shortly, but can we start with rugby? Had the delight of chatting to Wallace Satiti on the show yesterday after he won All Blacks Player of the Year. Hoskins Sotutu, Super Rugby Player of the Year. And again, we can revisit the topic of how the Super Rugby Player of the Year can be overlooked for the All Blacks.
Exactly. I mean, I think Wallace Satiti has been exceptional. It had to be him. It was his award. Made every single post a winner and also was given that freedom. So I also feel that if Hoskins Sotutu had played in the All Blacks, he might have done something similar. He might have been given that roving commission that Wallace had and just excelled as well. And I think there's room for both of them in the All Blacks, and it's kind of still strange having someone who was the Super Rugby Player of the Year on the outer. But hey, look, it's recognition. I think Hoskins Sotutu still wants to leave. I think his people are talking to NZ Rugby and initially were rebuffed, but he'll play another season of for the Blues. I think he really wants to win another title for Vern Cotter, and they've got a great sort of team chemistry there. But then after that, the offers are on the table, and all roads are pointing to England, I think, for Hoskins, if he can get out of that contract.
Now, you turned breaking news journalist during the week on X, formerly Twitter, when you dropped a rugby bombshell, letting us all know that Sean Stevenson is leaving the Chiefs to play in Japan.
Yeah, apparently prematurely. I have been told off for that tweet. I mean, you're never too old to get told off, Piney.
No.
And but they are in talks, and that is Liam Williams, the Welsh fullback. It was at Kubota. He had to leave, so there was a big gap with a massive salary attached in Japan. And Sean Stevenson, I mean, there have been stories of him sniffing around NRL, the Warriors, the Roosters, but this one here is a big money deal. I think it's going to go ahead. Sean Stevenson will go up to Japan. I think he's kissed his All Blacks hopes goodbye. I mean, the writing was on the wall, I think, when Shea Fihaki was called into the wider training group for the ABs. So, look, I think you want these players to obviously play in New Zealand because it makes the competition so much better. He is electric, an excitement machine. But you just go, well, to be honest, how can you say no to that money? If there's a way to make it happen, I say fair enough, off you go. There's always talent coming through.
This is such an interesting case study, isn't it? Because it was after the 2023 Super Rugby season when Sean Stevenson was probably the standout player in the competition, and it just seemed so obvious to pick him for the All Blacks, and he got the one test, didn't he, down at Dunedin? Is that right?
That's right. Played one test in a World Cup year, which he would have been feeling pretty bullish about, but missed out on the squad, and a bit like Hoskins, really. There was just let's face it, probably the two best Super Rugby players over the past two seasons just can't get a look in at that next step up, and I think it makes a big difference to how you're feeling about your path or your progression, really, in the sport. And right now it's probably time as a 28-year-old fullback to go and make some money.
Absolutely right. We'll keep an eye on that. We'll keep an eye on your Twitter account for the most up-to-date breaking news, if you are indeed still allowed to tweet by those who make these decisions.
I've got a shot collar now that's been given to me, so... Normally, my guideline for tweeting is don't tweet anything or any joke that you couldn't tell your grandmother. I thought that was a pretty good guideline, but now I've got some new ones. So, the shot collar is on.
All right, excellent. Other matters around. The A-League, the derby last week, it continued to simmer, didn't it, the A-League derby with the coach's war of words. I think the players kind of moved on quite quickly. Giancarlo Italiano and Steve Corica continued to sort of, I guess, go at each other a little bit in the days that followed.
Oh, absolutely. This is exactly what that sport needs. So we were there for the 26,000 game, the derby game, Piney, and then I talk about falling off a cliff. The Wellington Phoenix hosted MacArthur yesterday, and it was 7,000, I think, at the Cake Tin.
Yep.
So this is where the issue, I think, for all New Zealand sports really is how do you keep that interest? How do you get people through the gates? There's a lot of work to be done on the marketing side, on the game day experience, and now we watch with interest because I think the battle is not just on the field. I think off the field, merchandise. The Auckland FC have sold 20,000 shirts. The Warriors, I think, sold 39,000 last season, jerseys. So they're sort of like, that's their goal, to get up to past 39,000. And I'm sure the Wellington Phoenix will be acutely aware of the fact that they need to keep up in that race as well. And bums on seats. Yeah.
Have to, James. They have to lift their game. They do. They have to. It's not negotiable now. You're so right. The difference between what we saw last weekend, and yes, I know it wasn't a derby in Wellington yesterday, but the difference is stark. They have to lift their off-field game, the Knicks. They do.
And the thing is, on the field, the Knicks are looking okay, but still a loss yesterday, a loss to Auckland FC. They're sliding down the table. To be honest, if both our New Zealand teams make the playoffs, and I hope they do, I actually think that the Phoenix are just as well equipped to do really well, to win it. Because imagine a fit Marco Rojas and obviously Costa Barbarouses and Alex Rufer just getting, and Ishige, the new Japanese player. So you can't feel down in the dumps about the results just yet, Phoenix fans. It just needs to somehow get that alchemy that Chiefy found last year with the team.
Indeed. Hey, quick word on Caitlin Clark. She's won the Time Magazine Athlete of the Year.
Yes, Caitlin Clark, the basketballer who all eyes were on her when she was at Iowa. She's 22 now, played her first season in the WNBA, was named Rookie of the Year, All-NBA First Team of the Year. She finished with an average of 19 points and 8 assists. And now she's Time Athlete of the Year, and the criticism, the Caitlin Clark haters are everywhere. They're coming in from the league itself, which I think is just shocking, really. You've actually got to just appreciate, sometimes there is such a thing as buzz. And look at Reagan. She's probably Athlete of the Year, right? You know? But in this case, she won the Olympics and she got dead last. So, I mean, in this case, we're talking about someone who is outstanding. Yes, she's at the start of her career, but I remember when there was a young Indian guy who came here who just made his debut, age 16, Sachin Tendulkar, and I got to interview him. He had 2 bodyguards with him, actually, at the Devon Hotel in New Plymouth. One was Muhammad Azharuddin and the other was Kapil Dev. So they wouldn't let him answer a question without sort of vetting it first. But the buzz around him was similar. Sometimes he wasn't the best in the world at that point, but everyone was talking about this kid. And I think that sometimes happens. It's been dragged into a race-based sort of argument and debate. And I don't think that's necessarily a factor. I think she's just captured the imagination of basketball fans around the world, and people need to sort of lay off, because I think this is the last thing you need, really, when someone is doing something, I think, that's really positive for the sport.
Yep, the buzz is real. Great to chat as always, James. Let's do it again next Sunday.
Cheers, Piney. Have a good one.
You, mate. You have a good one too. James McConey, part of our Sundays here on News Talk ZB. News Talk ZB, 3.5 away from 2 on Weekend Sport. The final hour of our show after 2 kicks off with Auckland FC midfielder Jake Brimmer. 6 from 6, Auckland FC. Can they make it 7 from 7 tonight? Melbourne City are their opponent. So we'll talk to Jake Brimmer ahead of that. We'll wrap Ironman 70.3 in Taupō. And also keep an eye on the cricket at Seddon Park. A final visit to Andrew Alderson before 3.
The only place for the big names, the big issues, the big controversies, and the big conversations. It's all on Weekend Sport with Jason Pine on your home of sport. News Talk ZB.
Hi there, 2:07. This is Weekend Sport for another hour. And then Tim Beveridge is in the chair for the Weekend Collective. We'll keep eyes on Hamilton for you over the next hour or so, as I'm sure Tim Beveridge will too after 3. And we may very shortly have news of a wicket there. We'll just confirm that and check that everything is above board. We'll bring you that wicket shortly. So it's been a pretty good day so far for New Zealand in this one. This hour, Jake Brimmer's on the show out of Auckland FC. They're in Melbourne. Tonight they take on Melbourne City. I'd say their toughest assignment yet. in the A-League men's, although they have faced Wellington twice, and those were big games. But Melbourne City are a good team, very good team. Away from home, Auckland FC for just the second time. So Jake Brimmer on that. We'll also wrap what's happened over the weekend in Taupō. Massive event, obviously, the Ironman 70.3. Cameron Harper, one of the commentators down there in Taupō, or up there, depending on where you are, is going to join us on that. And there was a rather big surf life-saving event in Mount Maunganui yesterday, the Race 1 Surf Craft Mount Monster. It's one of the most prestigious surf life-saving endurance races in New Zealand. And, we've got the defending champions both winning. So the winners from last year both won yesterday. Jaden Murphy, the men, and Kate McCarty, the women. We'll chat to both of those two back-to-back winners this hour. Also check in with Andrew Alderson, who was at Seddon Park, obviously, with the latest on the cricket. You can join us whenever you like. 0800 80 10 80 is our number, 9292 on text, and emails into jason@newstalkzb.co.nz. Just before we go to In Case You Missed It, though, this has just happened in Hamilton.
Bowls a full delivery in the air, and he's taken there by Phillips. A good catch. At a sort of backward point or widest gully position. Was a lofted shot. Didn't look entirely in control of it, Bethel, and a nice catch from Phillips. And New Zealand get their third wicket.
They do. 77 for 3 England, with Jacob Bethel out, caught by Glenn Phillips in the gully off the bowling of Willow Rourke's first wicket. 77 for 3. New Zealand earlier bowled out for 347, so a handy 270-run lead at the moment, with Harry Brook and Joe Root at the crease. But as we always do at around about this time on Saturday and Sunday afternoon, it is time to get you up to date with the things that may have escaped your attention over the last little while. It's our In Case You Missed It feature, bringing you across the sport that's happened over the last 24 hours or so, or some of it anyway. Liverpool made use of their get-out-of-jail-free card in the Premier League against Fulham overnight.
His shot twisting, turning, scoring! Returning with a bang! A huge Liverpool goal! And Diogo Jota comes up with the goods in their hour of need.
Yeah, squeezing in a late equaliser to escape with a point after going down to 10 men, 2-2 Liverpool and Fulham. And for Nottingham Forest, a rare win that didn't include Chris Wood getting on the score sheet.
Anderson. And turned in. Anthony Elanga. On a day when Nuno's substitutions have apparently turned the game for Forest.
2-1 winners over Aston Villa. Nottingham Forest are into the top 4 in the Premier League. Closer to home, the Wellington Phoenix losing back-to-back matches for the first time in 39 games.
Fiol on goal. Jakalic. And into the back of the net it goes. And Dean Bosniak has his first goal for MacArthur. And it's a goal that puts the Bulls into a 2-1 lead with 15 minutes remaining.
Yeah, a 2-1 loss to MacArthur, seeing the Phoenix down to 6th on the A-League ladder. And the New Zealand Breakers continue to slide as well. Another loss last night, a big one to Adelaide.
Maybe Regani for the final shots. And that's a nice way to finish. It's going to be another big 17-point win to the Adelaide 36ers. A dominant fourth quarter, led by that dynamic duo of Davis and Harold. And they get their season rolling.
Breaking down the Hail Marys and the epic fails. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, Newstalk ZB.
2:12. Very shortly, we'll hear from Jake Brimmer out of the Melbourne-based Auckland FC camp as they prepare to take on Melbourne City tonight, Auckland FC. But we were just in Hamilton. Let's get back there.
O'Rourke, pretty fired up. Comes in. Oh, and it's played on! Harry Brook, first ball! Get on his way, big inside edge! And at last, New Zealand get a bit of luck when it comes to Harry Brook.
Wow. Yeah, Harry Brook out first ball, so Will O'Rourke with the wickets of Bethel and Brook in successive deliveries. 77 for 4 now, England. So this is looking more and more like New Zealand's day. But as we know with England, you can never relax even for a second because they have the ability to take games away from you. Ollie Pope's come out to join Joe Root. 77 for 4, England trailing by 270 runs. Auckland FC put their perfect start to A-League life on the line again this evening. They play fourth-placed Melbourne City at Amy Park, 7 o'clock New Zealand time kickoff, looking to win a 7th straight game. Auckland FC midfielder Jake Brimmer is with us. Jake, thanks for joining us on the afternoon of the game. Does this feel like the biggest challenge of the season so far, travelling over to take on Melbourne City at Amy Park?
Yeah, of course. Look, we know what Melbourne City are like. They're a good footballing team, and tonight's going to be a battle. And we're prepared. We've done everything during the week to prepare for this game. Now we just need to go out and execute that plan, and hopefully come away with 3 points. You had the last 4 seasons, of course, at Melbourne Victory. How much did you enjoy the derbies against Melbourne City during your time there? Oh, absolutely loved it. As a footballer, you want to play in derbies. You want to play in the biggest games of the year, and I know this is not a derby for me, but it's a little bit extra. I love playing against Melbourne City, and again, I just hope that we put everything that we've done all week into plan and get away with the 3 points tonight. Just looking back a week, Jake, how much did you enjoy the win in the second New Zealand derby last weekend? Yeah, it was amazing. I can't speak highly enough of it. But not only that, not even the derbies, the 2 derbies we've had this year, we've played 6 games, we've won all 6 games, and, for us, it's about continuing that run and the performances to come with it as well. You lost Belgian midfielder Louis Verstraete quite early in the game. He's been big for you, hasn't he? How pleased were you with how the team adjusted quickly to losing him unexpectedly? I think that shows how good we are as a team, to be honest with you, and the versatility we have all over the park. Like you say, Cam Howson came in and did an absolute brilliant job, obviously, during the week. But we also know that Louis is a big miss to the team, and we've got players that are ready to step in at any time of the game. So it just shows the credit and the versatility we have in this team. Yeah, it seems like there's a sort of a next man up mentality. I think of the previous week, no Hiroki Sakai, big loss, but Callan Elliott, I thought, did a good job in his place. Yeah, no, he did. Callan's a great footballer, and he stood up to the challenge and did just as well as Hiroki did. And again, I can't speak highly enough of this team. And, again, this week we will have challenges that come and go, and we've got players that are ready. So we just need to do our job and rely on the players that come in. The long streak without conceding was finally ended. Despite the win, was there any minor disappointment that you couldn't go 6 straight games without conceding? Of course, but that just shows how good we are as a football club, is that we're disappointed about conceding a goal. And to be honest with you, as sad as it was that we did concede, I think it was good because we're probably not used to conceding, and all the defenders, they're all doing absolutely brilliant, and I can't speak highly enough of them as well. Of course, you're you sort of have made your name in a midfield role, more of an attacking role over time. But do you still take pride as well in your part to play in such a good defensive start to the season? Yeah, of course, definitely. I admire them at the back, but also, I look at everyone in the team and the work they do. We've got players that are clocking up 12.5 kilometres as wingers and as strikers, and myself as well. So you think everyone talks about the defenders and stuff like that, but we defend from the front. And, if they manage to beat us up front, you look at all the opportunities we've had, in the attacking third from winning the ball back higher up the pitch. But then you also look when they break that press and the defenders stand up and they have that do not die attitude, you know what I mean? They put their body on the line for everything, and it's just, it's obviously very pleasing as someone that's a bit higher up the pitch and what they do at the back. So in the search for continual improvement, where do you think the big growth areas are still to come in the Auckland side? I'd probably say a bit more patient on the ball. I think we got room for improvement in terms of moving the ball around a bit quicker and probably not forcing things as much. But also think you look at the games and the opportunities we have 20-odd shots a game, and we're probably not executing that as much. So I think that's probably somewhere where we can get a little bit better at. But like you say, we're still gelling. We're still a new team. And at the end of the day, we're going to improve automatically anyway.
There's been plenty of chat around this week, mainly involving the coaches actually, that the early season draw has favoured Auckland FC. Do you have a view on that?
Well, you think the Auckland staff plan the draw? That's the APL. They do all that. It has nothing to do with our club. And for some clubs it's not. But like the manager said in his interview the other day, is at the end of the season we're going to be playing a lot more away games. So it is what it is. It's nothing to do with us, and we just worry about what we have to do.
And have you? I know you'll only focus on Melbourne City, but have you thought about the first time you play Victory, New Year's Day in Auckland?
Yeah, I take it game by game, but you're right. Yes, I definitely have. Look, I've got no bad blood with Victory. I love Melbourne Victory as a football club, but of course I can't wait to play them. It's a good team, and they look very good this year. So let's see if they can come and beat us.
Absolutely. And tonight, any Melbourne-based family or friends who'll get to see you in Auckland FC colours for the first time at Amy Park?
Yes, definitely. I've got about 30 to 40 people coming tonight. So, look, it's brilliant. That's why it makes it so much easier when you have so many trips away, and there's 3 Melbourne-based teams, so we're playing there throughout the year, and it's good. It's good to see my family, and like you say, I'm excited for tonight.
Always enjoy chatting, Jake. All the best tonight. Thanks for your time, mate.
Thank you. Appreciate it, mate. Bye.
Thank you, Jake. Thanks indeed. All the best tonight. 7 o'clock. Kick-off at Amy Park. That's 7 o'clock New Zealand time. Auckland FC up against Melbourne City, wrapping up round 8 of the A-League men's. Auckland FC looking for a 7th straight win to start their life. Incredible stuff. 2:19, Will O'Rourke has not achieved the hat-trick, unfortunately. He got wickets off the last 2 balls of his previous over, which we brought to you when he had Bethel caught in the gully by Glenn Phillips, and then Harry Brook chopping on. But it feels to me as though he may not have got the hat-trick, but has he just got another wicket? I think he might have. We'll get you back to Seddon Park in just a moment. 2:19. Let's take a break. When we come back, we'll bring you that wicket, and also head to Taupō, where it's been Iron Man across the weekend. We'll wrap that for you here on Weekend Sport.
The voice of sport on your home of sport. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner-Holmes. New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
2:22 on Weekend Sport to Taupō shortly, but back to Hamilton, courtesy of the ACC.
Oh, this is Auckland, and he's gone! Seams into Joe Root, cramped him up. He tried to slice him away behind point and just scooped it straight to gully. And O'Rourke on fire at the moment. That is sensational stuff.
Absolutely sensational, as you heard there from Jason Hoyt in the ACC. Joe Root out, caught by Will Young off the bowling of Will O'Rourke for 32. 3 for 13 for Will O'Rourke, and England 82 for 5, still trailing by 265 runs, with Ollie Pope joined at the wicket by his captain Ben Stokes. A podium finish meantime for Kiwi triathlete Hayden Wilde in his first Ironman World Championship event in Taupō earlier today.
The 2024 VinFast Ironman 70.3 World Champion goes to Belgium's very own Jelle Heens in a smoking time of 3 hours and 32 minutes. Wow, what a celebration. Well earned today.
You have to give it up for this man. He put it out there. He absolutely went for it and has every reason to be so proud. Heartbroken, but proud.
At 26, a future ahead of him that's as bright as the present. I mean, well done. A good fight there for Hayden Wilde. Second place in 3:33 and exhausted, fully spent on the carpet.
Yeah, the Olympic silver medalist placing second behind Belgian Jelle Heens, as you heard there, a time of 3 hours, 33 minutes, 22 seconds. Fellow New Zealander Kyle Smith coming home in fourth place. Let's bring in Ironman commentator Cameron Harper. Cameron, how close was Hayden Wilde to actually challenging for victory?
Well, it was interesting, Piney, because it was on from the start. I don't know what you like when you put the speedos on or get on the 10 speed, but these guys were flying right from the very start. So they jump in the water, they go for the swim to start with. Just to give you a bit of an idea on it, these guys got through 1.9 Ks of swimming in Lake Taupō in a shade under 22 minutes. So they were just flying. Got on the bike under 2 hours for 90 Ks. We're averaging over 45. They got out into the run. Hayden had a bit of a gap, and he took off. And he was flying. He's running first couple of Ks about 3 minutes per K. So, geez, it's pretty handy to go 500 metres, isn't it? But Hayden was he was caught. He was caught with about 2 Ks to go, and that was it all over for him in the World Championship. But he had a pretty good lead, but Yellowgeens managed to reel him in and win the World Championship.
Incredible stuff. Was this expected? Did you expect Hayden Wild to do so well? As you say, he led on the run, only overtaken, and finishes on the podium in second place. Was that what you expected from him pre-race?
Yeah, look, I did. I thought he'd get a podium. I really did think he'd get a podium. Just didn't know which part it would be. But, I think he was definitely one of the pre-race favourites. Carl Smith was always going to be up there. When you got guys like Leo Berger from France who rounded out that podium, but Allegheny in middle distance racing has been going exceptionally well for a very long time. And, I think to him, we always knew he'd come at the end. And Hayden, unfortunately for him, blew up a wee bit. He slowed down quite a bit in those last couple of Ks, whereas Yellowgeens seemed to keep speeding up. And in the end, it was just too much for Hayden. But a second place is still an absolute legendary effort, really.
Oh, absolutely. Look, there's absolutely no question about that. I just wonder how much he would have had to alter his training. We're so used to seeing him, Cameron, aren't we, in the Olympic distances, the shorter distances. Would he have had to do a lot different in the lead up to this, or would the base have been there already for him?
Well, the base would have been there. Hayden is a young guy. He did a lot of multi-sport. He did the coast to coast. Brian Ash could tell you all about that sometime. But he did the coast to coast so much as a couple of times as a young man. Did a lot of multi-sport racing as a young man in Whakatane. So he's had a huge endurance base for a long time. And he often says in that shorter distance, he can't quite show off his bike skills because he's very, very good the longer it goes on a bike ride. So, for him, a lot of those shorter distance guys that do a lot of middle distance training, sort of the 70.3 kind of training, and then really sharpen up for those shorter distances. So for them to transfer across to be able to do this middle distance racing, it's not that much of a stretch for them.
All right. And in terms of the way the race played out, in general terms, do most triathletes, most Ironmen and women, are they able to hold on the run, or is the run often a place where there's quite a bit of positional change?
Yeah, they're exactly right, Piney. I mean, to give you an idea, the gentleman that from the US that was in the lead at the start of the swim ended up placing, I think, about 32nd. So, he spent the rest of the day with people going past him, unfortunately. But, I mean, the pace is so high in these races. Every year, these young guys just seem to have a revolution in the sport, and they get quicker and quicker and quicker. I mean, to give a bit of context, 70.3 is the miles, so put that into Ks, but, 1.9K swim, 90 Ks on the bike, 21 on the run, 3 hours 32 to get that all done. I mean, that's just craziness, really, isn't it, the pace these guys are going?
It's eye-watering. It's so right, Cam. It's eye-watering how quick they are going. So when they're looking for improvements, is there one of the three disciplines where it's I guess I'm not going to say easier, but where you would look to make your gains? I feel like a 90k bike race, because of the longer distance, or 90k on the bike, the longer distance, you might be able to make your gains there. Is that accurate or not?
Yeah, you're right. I mean, that's where most everyday triathletes, when they go out and have a go, that's when they make their gains. They do make gains in that 90k bike ride. But, I think you've got to be fit enough, though, to be able to ride your bike and come off in good enough condition to be able to run whatever distance it is that you've got in that triathlon for this one, a half marathon. But just the pace these guys run. But just in general, I mean, there's 3,800 athletes from 119 countries on the course today, just in the men's race. A whole lot of women in the race yesterday. So on the race here in Taupo, 3,800 people from 119 countries. I mean, Taupo is absolutely heaving, flying and succeeding at the moment.
Yeah, love it. And yeah, Taylor Knibb, we should mention her, winner in the women's race yesterday. Was she a popular winner?
Oh, a very popular winner. And you'd be very brave to, put $5 against her because to not think she would have won it. Some outstanding athletes around her, the likes of Kat Matthews, Imogen Simmons and others. Ashley Gentles out of Australia as well, but that's an outstanding athletes there. But Taylor Knibb's just been dominant for a long time, and this is her third win on the World Championships in a row. So, reigning, defending, and she got it for the third time. So yeah, it was expected, but at the same time, you learn to not expect the expected at times in the sport. But no, Taylor definitely delivered.
Good stuff. And just to finish, you alluded to it before, the number of people who lined the course. I guess particularly the run leg. I think I heard Taylor Knibb say yesterday that pretty much on every 10 metres of the run course, she was getting encouragement from the crowds. Big numbers turning up, Cameron?
Oh, incredible. The population of Taupo is about 27,000 people from what they've been told by the locals. And they've had almost that again turn up for the weekend. another 25,000 people turning up as athletes and supporters. And even just today, when Hayden Wild and Yellowgeens and Leo Berger and a huge crowd for Kyle Smith, there was literally like 2,000 people just standing on the waterfront, just yelling their names. And at the end, the guys are like, we've never, ever, at any event, ever had support like this. So it's really raised the bar coming to New Zealand for this championship.
Absolutely love it. Great to chat, Cam. Thanks for updating us, mate. Great work over the weekend. We'll catch up again soon.
Thanks, Piney.
All the best, mate. Cheers. Cam Harper there, Ironman commentator, bringing us up to date. Yeah, so Hayden Wild coming home second behind the winner, Yellowheens. But, I saw some footage earlier, and in typical Hayden Wild fashion, I don't think he left anything out there. When he crossed the line, just collapsing to the carpet. 1.9k swim, 90k bike, 21.1k run, so basically a half marathon to finish, which is much longer than the Olympic distances that we're used to seeing Hayden Wild compete in. Although I remember when I spoke to him a month or so ago in the lead up to this, he said, look, we, as in his team, we're going to look at more of these longer distances over the next couple of years and then revert back to the Olympic stuff ahead of Los Angeles in 2028. In 2028. No further wickets that I can see in Hamilton, but we'll keep you up to date. I want to move straight to surf lifesaving because it was double domination from the defending champions yesterday at the prestigious Race 1 Surfcraft Mount Monster in Mount Maunganui. Last year's Open champions, Jaden Murphy of Mount Maunganui and Kate McCarty of Lyall Bay in Wellington, both produced blistering performances to maintain their respective crowns in the country's top surf life-saving endurance race. What they have to do, a 10k ski paddle, a 5k soft sand run, then a jump from the famous blowhole on Motoriki Island for a 1.5k ocean swim, and they close it out with a 5.5k board paddle to the finish. For Jaden Murphy, it extends his winning streak in this event to an incredible fourth Open title in a row. Jaden Murphy is with us. You've got to give everybody else a chance.
They're definitely coming. They're very competitive in there.
You said yesterday or before the race you wanted to go hard from the start of the 10k ski paddle. Why was that your strategy?
Ski paddling is my strongest leg, and I just like getting out, getting into my own rhythm and my own water, and I can just focus on what I need to do. And it just helps the race flow for me personally. So that's always the game plan.
Is there also a sense of wanting to, I guess, burn off your competitors early in the piece?
Oh yeah, for sure. Like it's easier to lead than to chase.
So it worked well for you. You got out to a lead. Can you talk us through the rest of the race, or talk us through the whole thing as you reflect upon it the day after?
Like I say, just a good first ski leg. Put a couple of minutes on every run of that, and then ran well. And then the swim being my probably my second strongest leg, I just really tried to, focus on that as well and try and drag that lead out a little bit more. And then I was able to kind of have a relatively easy last leg on the board, and just get around the course and finish, and not get caught up with having to try and trying to sprint anyone off at the finish line. So.
And in terms of your times, were you about where you thought you'd be, where you wanted to be?
Yeah, I think I paced it out pretty well. The ski obviously was real good. My run was I was real happy with my run. And then after that everything starts falling into place. So stoked with what I put down.
As you're competing in the various legs, are you aware of how far ahead you are?
I ask people. My old man, he's my biggest supporter. He's always on the beach keeping track. So, he's saying they're 2 minutes behind, they're minute 40, whatever. They catch you, need to work here, do this. So that's good because it's pretty hard to look over your shoulder and try and gauge how close and if people are catching you while you're racing.
You said before that others are coming. You've won this 4 years in a row, but is it a fairly competitive field or was it yesterday that you were up against?
Yeah, super competitive. Obviously I had a good start and got away in my own water, but second, third, and fourth were all within 30 seconds of each other, and they were a couple of minutes behind me. So it's definitely super competitive, and it's New Zealand's premier endurance Ironman event, so everyone wants to win it.
What sort of preparation goes into achieving success like this for you? What's your build-up to a race like this like?
So I'll train every night and every morning, Monday through to Friday. We swim an hour and a half in the pool every morning, and then we're on the water for an hour, hour and a half in the evenings, and as well as throw a few runs in there. And Saturday, quite often we'll do a full course run through. So we're out there for 2.5 hours, just really trying to get that knowledge of, your body as you're working for that longer period of time. So there's a lot of work.
What's the soft sand run like? I mean, anybody who's run on sand knows it's difficult, even for a couple of 100 metres. 5K?
Yeah, it definitely drains you. It absolutely sucks it out of your legs. But, you just get in a rhythm and tick along, and once you get your legs flowing, it's not terrible.
How did you get into this? It sounds like your old man's, as you say, your biggest supporter. Is he the one who got you into this?
It kind of originated around when we moved to the beach. I live in Mount Maunganui. My parents wanted me to be safe around the water, so they got me into surf lifesaving. And then it's kind of just grown from there. I love the club, love the culture, love the sport. So I've just, really, really taken that, and I've, spent a lot of time doing it overseas as well. Lived over in Aussie and gone to Japan and Italy and stuff with the sport. So it's just, it's me, it's part of me. So
incredible. And busy time ahead for you. I think Eastern Regional Champs, Nationals. You got a couple of races in Australia in March and April. What are your goals for the summer ahead?
I'd love to win another National Open title for the Ironman event. That's a massive goal. As well as, really try and mix it over in Aussie because, the boys over there, they're flying. So it'd be really cool to go over there and start making some Iron finals.
And you're part of the volunteer patrol at Mount Maunganui Lifeguard Service. While this is competitive, obviously, there's the safety aspect as well of everybody who goes swimming across the summer. How much of this helps you to get in shape? Not that I think you need to, but how much does this help you get in shape for December, January, when I guess you're at your busiest?
Oh, it's pretty crucial, hey. When you're a lifeguard and you're in and out of the water all the time and you're trying to look after people out there, you got to be fit yourself and you got to be, pretty onto it with getting in and out through the surf. So it is super crucial, and it just really makes you a better lifeguard.
Well, congratulations on number 4. You're back for. I presume you're back to defend again next year, are you? All things going well for number 5?
Oh, have to on the home beach. Got to go for 5.
Love it, Jaden. Congratulations, mate. All the best for the summer ahead. Thanks for everything out to us.
Thank you. Appreciate it.
No, appreciate you joining us, Jaden. Jaden Murphy, men's winner of the Race 1 Surfcraft Mount Monster. What a name for an event. Mount Maunganui yesterday. Let's bring in women's champion, Kate McCarty from the Lyall Bay Club in Wellington. Kate, congratulations to you on going back-to-back. Talk us through the race yesterday. Were you happy with how it went?
Yeah, I was super happy to put out a good race, and to have my family and friends there to support me and do well was really special to me.
There seems to be a lot of moving parts to this whole thing, a lot of different things that you've got to get your head around. How do you go about planning, the perfect race in a situation like this?
I mean, a race is never going to be perfect, but just trying to put together each leg as best as I can and piece it together, I guess. Working to my strengths as well, which is probably the run and swim, just to make up ground and kind of get a lead, and then, work the rest as much as I can.
So talk us through each of the different legs. When did you, were you ahead on the ski paddle, for example? When did you sort of take the lead and think to yourself, right, I'm in a pretty good position here?
I came out 4th out of the first ski leg, maybe a minute or so behind, and then I did the run, and I think I was maybe 2 or 3 minutes ahead, and just extended that into the swim and the board, which was good.
So it was on the run that you kind of asserted a bit of dominance. That sounds hard, man, running 5K on soft sand.
Yeah, it was hard, but yeah, definitely challenging. But they're all challenging, I guess, depending on what your strengths are.
Now, you were only 17 when you won it last year, youngest ever female winner, 18 now, presumably. Did you feel like you had a target on your back yesterday?
I mean, I guess so. Obviously, winning it last year, there's always going to be some pressure, but there's so many amazing women out there competing for the title. So people come in and out of competing it and doing it each year, so it's always a different field. You never really know who's going to be up to it on the day.
How did you get into the sport?
It was my dad when I was maybe 11 or 12. He just wanted me to feel confident and comfortable in the water. So yeah, I did surf lifesaving to make sure I just had the basic surf skills, I guess, and then fell in love with it. Got into the sport side through Lao Bay Surf Lifesaving Club. So I was really lucky to have a great group there, run by Craig Jones. So really thankful for my family and them.
How did you get so good so quickly?
Oh, it definitely wasn't so good so quickly. Yeah, definitely. Definitely started in, not bad when I was young, but coming from Wellington is challenging, competing against all the people from up north. But yeah, just I guess time on the water, time practicing, I've definitely got better as I've gotten older.
Yeah, the beaches of Wellington aren't quite the same as the Mount, are they, really?
No, definitely not quite the same temperatures either.
No, you did right. So have you got other events coming up over the months ahead this summer that you're going to be competing in?
Yeah, I'm heading over to Aussie in January to do some events, and I'm doing university over there as well. So just working, university, some more events, and then I'll come back over here for nationals next year. So yeah, a few comps, which will be nice.
It seems as though Australia's got a huge surf lifesaving culture. Are you looking forward to immersing yourself in that?
Yes, definitely. I've been over there for quite a bit of this year as well, doing my first year university and training at Northcliffe, so I'm very lucky for them as well. But it's crazy over there, so much competition, and the level was just a level above here, so it's great to kind of dip my foot in there and get a taste of what it's like.
And do you also volunteer over the summer months just in surf lifesaving? You mentioned before about how it was something your dad got you into to make sure you were safe in the water. Do you now volunteer to make sure others are safe?
Yeah, so as part of our sport, we have to volunteer 24 hours. So everyone who competes, we do patrol shifts in the weekend, just keeping the beaches safe, I guess, and volunteering, which is really nice to have. Not only competing, but something to give back to as well, which is really special.
So you're back next year to try and make it 3 in a row at the Mount?
Yes, hopefully.
Well, I can tell you, I know you're still there. It's actually a beautiful day in Wellington today. That might come as a surprise.
Oh, really?
Yeah, it is actually okay here today. I know you've probably seen some terrible days here, as I have, but it's actually all right today. So I'm not sure when you're coming back, but hopefully it holds. Hey, congratulations on your win yesterday, Kate. All the best for the summer ahead. It sounds like an exciting time for you.
Cool. Thank you so much, Jason.
No, thank you for joining us, Kate. Kate McCarty there from the Lyle Bay Surf Club in Wellington, women's winner of the Race 1 Surfcraft Mount Monster in Mount Maunganui yesterday. Good stuff. 17 away from 3. Just updating you on the cricket from the Gabba. They didn't get a lot in yesterday because it rained for most of the day. Australia 28 without loss at stumps. They've got underway, I think, on time today. And Australia have lost 3 wickets. Kawaja for 21, McSweeney for 9 and Labuschagne for 12. Jasprit Bumrah, unsurprisingly, has 2 of those wickets, 2 for 12 off 11 overs. Australia 77 for 3, with Steve Smith unbeaten on 19. Travis Head there on 1 not out at the moment. Australia batting first, having been sent in yesterday by India, with almost the entire first day lost to rain. 17 to 3. We'll get you back to Seddon Park in Hamilton, where New Zealand are having a very good time of things in the field against England. Andrew Alderson with us for the final time this afternoon, right after this.
The big issues on and off the field. Call 0800 80 1080. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine and GJ Gardner-Holmes. New Zealand's most trusted home builder. News Talk ZB.
13 and a half away from 3. They're just back from drinks in the middle session on day 2 of the third test between New Zealand and England at Seddon Park in Hamilton. England are 100 for 5, chasing New Zealand's first innings of 3-4-7. Lunch 54 for 2, Andrew Alderson. Drinks 100 for 5. New Zealand continue to play pretty well in this test match by the looks of things.
Well, it's an excellent performance so far, Piney, no doubt about it. And just finished the drinks break there. We heard Bon Jovi's "Living on a Prayer" play. And I think on the lines of "We're halfway there" was the issue there, or the message they wanted to get across. And that is so true. 100 for 5, and still a deficit of 247. England playing sort of the usual, the T20 style of batting, but it's worked in New Zealand's favour mainly, I have to say, I mean, Matt Henry making the early 2 breakthroughs, getting both openers, Zach Crawley and Ben Duckett. But since then, it's been Will O'Rourke. And sort of in a poetic sense, O'Rourke, he's been bowling from the Tim Southee end. And if you think of the passing of the guard, that's effectively what's occurred here, because O'Rourke's taken the next 3 wickets. He's had Bethel loosely cutting to Phillips' backward point. He's had Harry Brook, which was probably the key one, chopping on first ball for a golden duck, but also getting Joe Root cramped and feeding a catch to Gully in the form of Will Young. So an outstanding bowling display by Will O'Rourke from the Tim Southee end at Seddon Park.
Yeah, just on the Harry Brook one, we'll look at his innings so far in this series. 171 in his only bat in Christchurch, 123 and 55 at the Basin. Out first ball here, so that's got to be utterly significant for New Zealand's hopes, doesn't it?
Oh, I think it's the key play, potentially the game, Piney, with how things have gone so far with Harry Brook. In any match he seems to have played against New Zealand. If you think of the follow-on victory by New Zealand at the Basin in February 2023, that was with the Harry Brook run out without facing a ball on that occasion. So this time he's gone a touch better. He's actually faced the delivery, but Will O'Rourke has got him chopping on. So I think that really is the key for New Zealand in this innings, and whether they go from strength to strength here. I think they probably need one more to feel a bit more secure about it. England now 104 for 5, deficit 243. If they could get either Ben Stokes or Ollie Pope, given their experience, but particularly Stokes, who we know loves to, work at his best in adversity. We've seen that before from the Ashes and even the World Cup final, dare I say, from 2019. So we know his pedigree in that regard.
Tim Southee started with an over, I think you mentioned to us before, that had 4 boundaries come from it, but he bounced back to be more economical after that. Still hasn't picked up a wicket. How is Tim Southee bowled from his end in this Test match?
Well, ironically, he's not bowling from his end now. He's bowling from the other end, and he's got none for 32. He's into his 9th over now. So if you think about those 7 overs since the 16th, he had 7 overs, none for 16. So he certainly tidied things up, got things a lot tighter. And I don't know, maybe there was a touch of nerves in this final match of that opening over. Who knows? But he's certainly in much more of a rhythm now, and I guess complementing what O'Rourke is achieving at the other end with those wickets.
And still just Henry, Southee and O'Rourke used. Any sign of calisthenics from Mitchell Santner? I guess while things are going the way they are, he won't be needed.
Well, that's right. I think they'll be looking more to him, just like we were talking before about Shoaib Bashir, for the second innings of the game for each team. So Santner in particular, the 4th innings, with the pitch starting to turn a touch, will be the hope, as we've seen in some previous games in recent years at Seddon Park. But no, I haven't seen him stretching out at any stage as yet, but I'll be keeping an eye on him next little while, Piney.
Excellent stuff. Thanks for your reports across the weekend, Alders. Great to have you on site for us. Appreciate your time as always.
It's a wonderful time here, actually. Crowd flooding in and just really appreciating it on a Sunday afternoon. I think it's really a bit of the essence of Test cricket right there, Piney.
Absolutely right, Alders. If only there was more to enjoy across the summer, but we've been down that road. We know it's all white ball after this, but great to have the Test cricket going on in Hamilton. Andrew Alderson, read him at nzherald.co.nz. He updates the day's play with facts and opinion and incisive writing. nzherald.co.nz. England 104 for 5. They trail by 243. Ollie Pope is 14 not out. Ben Stokes, the England captain, there on 5. As Pope cuts away to the point boundary for another 4. So he moves to 18, 108 for 5. England now trailing by 239. 8.5 to 3 on News Talk ZB.
When it's down to the line, you make the call on 0800 80 1080. Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, News Talk ZB.
Coming up 5 to 3 on News Talk ZB. That's us for Weekend Sport for today and for another weekend. Really appreciate you taking the time to tune in across the afternoon to take part in the conversation or just to listen to the parts of the show that interested you. We know it's a busy time of the year, so any time you spend with us is greatly appreciated by us. Huge thanks to Andy McDonald for pulling the show together this weekend and doing extra shifts all around the place. I think there were a few people who didn't quite make it in after the Christmas party. Thankfully for you, Andy McDonald refrained at the Christmas party. He put work ahead of his own personal pleasure.
Can I stress that that's a rarity?
I was just going to say, this will come as a surprise to everybody.
It's a massive, a huge sacrifice. So I hope everyone's grateful.
I'm very grateful. I'm very grateful. Thanks, mate. We'll see you tomorrow. We're back on Sports Talk tomorrow night, 7 through 8. Tim Beveridge on the radio after 3 o'clock with the Weekend Collective. Song to take us out today. Tim Southee's debut for New Zealand was in the back end of March 2008. He's currently playing his 107th and final test, of course, but the number one song in New Zealand when Tim Southee made his test debut was this one by Kid Rock. Is it The Kid Rock or just Kid Rock? Just Kid Rock, I think.
Kid Rock.
It's got no the. It's got no the.
How old are you, man?
The Kid Rock.
I love that, The Kid Rock.
I love that artist, The Kid Rock. This is all summer long. Number one song when Tim Southee made his test debut. See you tomorrow.
And we were trying different things, and we were smoking funny things, making love out by the lake to our favorite song, sipping whiskey out the bottle, not thinking about tomorrow, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long, singing Sweet Home Alabama all summer long.
For more from Weekend Sport with Jason Pine, listen live to News Talk ZB weekends from midday or follow the podcast on iHeartRadio.